Everyone has a story to tell. Welcome to DingoTalk, where we explore the experiences that make us who we are. Here's your host, Carlo Guadagnino.
What's going on, Chuckleheads? I am Carlo Guadagnino.
Hi, I'm Paul Alexander.
This is Donny Football.
I'm Andrew Stockey.
I'm Bill Hillgrove.
Greg Brown. I'm Lanny Frattare.
John Fedko.
Hi, I'm Ashley Dougherty.
This is DingoTalk.
I just absolutely fell in love, with the campus. And actually a girl I was dating, her brother was going to Penn State. And I came up and to visit my sister and kind of hung out and spent a little time with him. And ironically ran into at a fraternity party. I'm in ninth grade. I run into the superintendent of schools at Churchill, as well as the principal at Churchill. And they, of course, had a beer in their hands, and as did I. And we kind of caught, we looked at each other and we just kind of went, are you okay? I'm okay. You okay? We're okay.
So from a young age, though, was broadcasting what you wanted to get into? There was no...
Well, I wanted to be, an athlete. Drive down there, anchor the news. Thankfully, it went very well. So there was a bizarre situation during one of the arts festivals, which is a big annual event up there in Happy Valley. The kids just got out of control and became very destructive, and there were like riots. And I mean, I lived on the outskirts in State College. I got up at like 7 the next morning, went and played golf, and everyone's like, "Hey, did you hear what happened?" I'm like, "What happened?" Like, "Well, the kids rioted." I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" And that was a Sunday morning.
Wow.
So I get a call from the news director at KDKA, and he said, "Hey, if we send our satellite truck up, would you anchor some reports for us about what happened?" Sure. I mean, I'm going to be doing it for my station anyhow. I mean, it's a huge deal.
Yeah.
I did like 3 or 4 reports for KDKA, and the news director said, "Why are you still there?" Like, still where? Like, why are you still in Altoona? I'm like, "Well, I really love Penn State. It's, I'm raising a family. It's a great place to live." And he's like, "You need to send me a tape." He goes, "Have you anchored any news?" And I thought to myself, I've kind of focused on sports primarily, but I remembered, yeah. So I in finding tape back then was not that easy. So I'm calling, I'm like, "You have to find that newscast that I actually anchored because I need it." But I go, "I just need it." So I find it, I send it. Thankfully, an old friend of mine was now the assistant news director at KDK, and he goes, "Why haven't you been doing this all along?"
What are some of the things from your time at KDK that really stand out to you, similar to the Sugar Bowl?
Well, the thing that was fortunate, unfortunate, Don Cannon had an unfortunate episode at TAE. The people in charge at KDK and TAE were bitter rivals. Really, really did not like each other. So when TAE let Don Cannon go, they brought Don Cannon on to be the morning anchor, my job. So that was like, okay, we're in the big time now. He's Don Cannon. I mean, okay. So they literally kicked me out the door to be the morning reporter. The guy that says, "You shouldn't be outside right now, it's too cold." And I'm the guy saying that. So, I mean, it was not very pleasant, but my foot was still in the door. And then, and I tell people now all the time, when things look really bleak and things aren't working out, the job you really wanted, you don't get, and someone else, just keep plugging. So I kept plugging, showing up every morning, doing the best job I could. And then thankfully, the Pittsburgh Penguins hired Paul Steigerwald full-time away from KDKA. So that opened up an opportunity, and they came right to me and said, "We have a feeling you might be interested in this." And I went, "Yes, this is like a gift from God. Yes." So I had 4 different entities offering me jobs. I'm like, okay, this is pretty good. Meanwhile, KDK TV, they're like, whoa, you're not going anywhere. I'm like, "Well, are you going to hire me full time?" They're like, "Well, no, we'll pay you like this day rate right now. That's, I mean," and I remember just keep fighting and clawing. It's a crazy business, but to have as many opportunities as I've had, and covering I've covered every Pirate playoff game since 1990 in Cincinnati. 5 Stanley Cup championships, 2 Penn State national championships. I've been to 4 Super Bowls, 2 Steeler wins. I mean, I have no complaints, Carlo. No complaints at all. It's been a wonderful ride.
Now, communications was always the goal. That was what you wanted to do. This is kind of the field you wanted to get into.
Yeah, honestly, I got to say I was lucky that it popped in my brain pretty early in high school that I wanted to do something related to the sports media field, you could say.
What's it like at Waynesburg when you first get there?
It gets you a chance to be pretty hands-on right away. I think Chris Muller describes it in a very good way. He says Pony's the guy that lights the match, throws it into a pile of wood, watches everything burn, and just walks away while everybody else is still standing around it. I think that's a perfect way to describe how he is on social media. And I actually think I have so much respect for how both of them handle social media, because you see your people out there that cannot resist any of the trolls or haters or people that come at them, and I think it is a very good display of discipline on Pony and Chris's part to really not partake in any of that. So that is something I've tried to do as well. Saturday shift to do the news, that's a true 9 to 10 hour day right there. And even though you're done by about 1 p.m., you're in there at 2:30 or 3 in the morning, because it's pretty much a one-man show, and it's a lot more pieces that go into it than I think people realize. I'm lucky that they were happy with the work that I had done, thinking, we could always use an extra hand. So I started part-time then at the Fan in December of 2019. A few months later, obviously, everything in the world pretty much goes kaput. And I'm just working, whenever, weekends, sometimes the 5 to 11 shift, sometimes the late shift after a Pirate game, because they used to have like the real late show that Paul Zeiss would host. And while I did that, I worked with Amazon, which I wouldn't recommend to anybody. By the way, apologies to any Amazon big wigs that might be listening, or Jeff Bezos.
Well, let me start by saying Ohio University has a great journalism school. It's called the Scripps School of Journalism. I think I stepped in there once because I had to go, I don't know, I had to pick up something or whatever. It might have been a shortcut through campus. But I really didn't study journalism in college. I didn't plan on doing this. My focus was growing up, I loved business. I thought television was a fascinating thing. I was getting the cable is just really beginning to explode. This is like the late 80s, just to preface how old I am. And I'd done an internship at ESPN, which is in Bristol, Connecticut. And of all the departments I worked in, which include working on Sports Center and things like that, I found the business side really fascinating and something I thought I really wanted to do. And so I did a couple more internships with them in their business offices in Chicago. I had to do a senior thesis, and I wrote a thesis about building a cable network. That was my thing back then. And I just thought that's where my life would take me. Well, and I lost out on the job. I came in second, which actually made me feel pretty good. The guy who got the job is now third in command at ESPN. So I feel kind of like,
Yeah, he was.
So I don't feel so bad. But it's funny, during all that time, I began to realize that, sales and marketing and business wasn't really for me. I mean, it's like, you should go into being on TV. And I was kind of like, well, first of all, I don't have the anchor hair. I don't have that look. I don't, this is like I said, the late 1980s. Everybody looked like Ron Burgundy.
Yep.
Without the jacket. And
well, maybe some of the jacket.
Yeah. So all the things I came here for are gone now. Anyway, so I came here in March of 1995, and I was one of those people who thought I'd be here for a cup of coffee. I mean, I wanted to work in Chicago. I wanted to work in Boston. I wanted to work in a big city with all 4 pro teams, and live that life. But obviously, it's not the way things worked out, and for the better, because this is home. I really can't imagine living anywhere else. Over time, we had people who moved on, who retired, who went on to other things. And I think just kind of like, 2 or 3 years in, it's like, you're the last guy here. You want to be the sports director. So I said, yeah. I left sports. I basically left sports to do this. And I didn't really miss sports. I mean, it was a whole new challenge. The hardest part was getting up in the morning at 2:00. But, that's why I started drinking coffee. Yeah. I never had coffee in my life until that point.
And then in 1967, Channel 4, on my fourth audition, my first color audition, they decided to hire me. And that was April 1st, 1967. And that was a big opportunity to move, basically to a major player in the market. And
what are some of your favorite moments that you've been a part of?
Football would be obviously the Tony Dorsett touchdown against Navy that allowed him to break Archie Griffin's record. And it was the perfect venue, the Naval Academy. Mm-hmm. And they only fire that cannon for the mids. But in that instance, their people recognizing the historic moment, they fired the cannon when he hit the end zone. And then his parents came out of the stands and they walked around the outside of the field at Navy Marine Corps Stadium, and the entire brigade of mids doffed their caps. And it's a moment that I'll never, ever forget.
I believe 1994 is when you joined with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yes. And as it turned out, I did not apply for the job because Jack Fleming was a friend. He was the voice of the Mountaineers. We'd crossed paths many times. We'd played golf. We'd gone to racetracks together. And I never gave it a thought when he retired. And then all of a sudden, I get a call from the sales manager of the radio station saying, the more Mr. Rooney hears your tape, the more he likes it. And I said, what tape? I didn't submit a tape. Well, they're using your tape of Pitt games to compare all the other tapes coming in from around the country.
I was a puny little kid. My brothers beat me up like crazy and used to play knee football, we called it, in the living room. I don't know if you've heard of that, Carlo, but basically you play football on a carpet on your knees.
Yep.
With a little football, and you throw it to yourself. And anyway, and I just remember vividly being one day playing, getting beat up and looking up. They happened to have the television set on to an NFL Films piece showing an old Chicago Bears running back. At the time, he was in his prime, named Gale Sayers. And I was mesmerized by the beauty of this slow motion film with the music in the background and John Facenda, the great voice of NFL Films. Gale Sayers ran over the Green Bay Packers defensive line like a runaway Tonka toy. That's what I remember, that script. Like, wow, it was so cool that when I played all these sports, my buddies to this day laugh about it, that they got an opportunity not only to play when I was involved on the field or on the court, but they got an announcer. I would play and announce the game. Pittsburgh was my Oz. And the yellow brick road was the turnpike and the Parkway East and the Boulevard of the Allies. I loved it. I couldn't get enough of it. And the job opened up and I submitted my resume and tape and I didn't get the job. And I was devastated. I thought, what in the world do I have to do? I spent a whole year, 1 year in the minors, and now I don't, which is, a tongue in cheek because I know guys that are still in the minor leagues now when I was there in the minors.
There's a play at the plate after 19 innings on, I believe, July 26th of 2011. I remember watching the play. I was on the phone with my dad. Tag made. Hey, I'll call you back. They're going to switch innings. And the call is, he called him safe. What did you see on that play? And what is that play? What was that play for that group? Because that kind of derailed that season, but is almost a moniker for the 3 years where they do make the playoffs, is that, they didn't help themselves, but the umpires didn't necessarily help themselves either.
Well, a lot went into it, Carlo. It was you mentioned 2011. That was the 19th inning. So you were telling your dad, hey, they're going to the 20th inning. Interestingly enough, the following year tells you about baseball, because we all felt like that was the end of the season. But, you know, you take a closer look and you realize baseball being 162 games, they always say momentum is only good in baseball, is only as good as your next day's starting pitcher. And the Pirates just didn't have enough that year. In 2012, they won a 19-inning game against the St. Louis Cardinals. Again, they collapsed in September, didn't go to the playoffs. They then went over the hump in 13. But that was a play that, you know, when you're with a team all year long and you get to know all these guys, you become friends with them, or you know, certainly friendly, and you root for them, you get to know their stories. You're part of the team. My goodness, the voices, the play-by-play guys, the color announcers, you are part of the team. You travel with them. You're there every day. So we have a vested interest in this. Heck, financially, you got to be kidding me. I mean, we all made more money in 13, 14, and 15. The more fans come, the more games you play, the more playoffs, the more money you make. I mean, you break it down to that, let alone what it means to you emotionally. So, when that play happened, you know, you're invested in it as a broadcaster. It's a grind, and heck, if we're going to go 11, 12, 13, 14, my goodness, 15, 16, we got to win this thing. I know for a fact that Lanny, having known Lanny, worked with him when I was there in the front office. Lanny had always urged me to go to the minor leagues, learn. If you want to be a broadcaster, that's how you have to do it. When the job opened up the second time, I know Lanny lobbied for me to get the job. He carried a lot of weight.
I'm just a regular guy that had a desire at age 12 to be a baseball announcer, being a part of the broadcast fraternity. When you're looking to be moving forward in broadcasting, you have to be open-minded about what you'll take financially. Mm-hmm. And you've got to find a way, if you're not getting paid a lot of money, you've got to find a way to make it work for you financially. And the other thing is that you need to open up so that every market in the country is a possible job opportunity for you. Is that one of the scariest things about being a Pirate broadcaster in 1976 for me was that I was quite certain that 99% of my audience knew more about the Pirates than I did. I'd never been to Forbes Field. Okay. I never saw Roberto Clemente play. I knew limited information about Honus Wagner and Pie Traynor, and even to a certain extent couldn't have told you an awful lot when I started about the 60 World Series or the 71 World Series. It was only over a period of time that I committed myself to learning about that I finally did have the knowledge that I needed to be somewhat up to date and in step with my viewers. An anomaly that a major league broadcaster and a major league manager would have the friendship that we had, and that Jimmy would afford me the opportunity to spend so much time with him, to not only learn about the game, but Jim would share valuable bits of information with me. What happened was that about the second year that Jimmy was with the Pirates, he started inviting me up to his suite when we were on the road. Mm-hmm. And so I was, after most road games, sitting in Jimmy Leland's suite with his coaches, listening to them talk about the game, listening to them talk about players. I remember one of the first times I was up in Jim Leland's suite, it was in New York. They were talking about players to trade and debating as to whether they should trade somebody. And I won't tell you who the player was at that point, but you know, Jimmy was going around the room, said, "Hey, should we trade this guy?" And by the way, he got around to me and said, "Lanny, what do you think?" And I said, "I don't think you should trade him." And he said, what do you know? And he
rewarded me with 2 state baseball titles there, which were absolute miracles. I'm writing a book about just miracles. Those were miracles. And my whole life's been a miracle. I don't have a lot of talent, Carlo, but God's been really good to me. I've been going to church every day since I was in high school. Trinity High School in Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania. That's where I went to high school. Mm-hmm. And just had a lot of prayers answered. Pray a lot. I pray a lot. I say 9 rosaries a day. I'm not kidding. And they hired me. Now I'm working at 2 LA stations. All my prayers have been answered. What happens in the late 70s in LA? Here's what I get to cover. 1979, the Rams go to the Super Bowl. The Magic Johnsons drafted by the Lakers. They win the NBA championship. The Dodgers host an all-star game in 1980 where J.R. Richards, by the way, pitches. He ends up dying. 1981, the Dodgers go to the World Series. Wayne Gretzky's playing for the Edmonton Oilers. Guess who's in their division? The LA Kings. And these guys loved me so much at KNXT because I didn't care about school. USC was a joke. Mm-hmm. I was blowing off classes, and these guys were out covering the Steelers. Mm-hmm. And I knew that the stuff they were going to shoot was NFL films type stuff, okay? Because they've been doing Steelers for years. So I said, give me these guys on Friday night. Whatever you're going to pay me, pay them. I need the best photographers because it's what they put on the air is what's going to make high school football. And they gave me Rick Minatello, who went up the chopper with me, and they gave me these stud photographers. And I trust me, I'm a Christian. People don't get this. And you know, when you're a Christian, you always get crucified. So I had no idea they were going to make signs with my name on it. I wasn't asking for signs with my names on it. But I did say, shoot the fans, shoot the fans, shoot the fans, the cheerleaders, and the bands, because they got parents. Shoot the fans, the cheerleaders, and the bands.
And like, I am very lucky that I got a job so close to home. It's so rare. Mm-hmm. And you have to start out in a small market. There was a guy who used to work at TRF who worked at KDKA in Pittsburgh. He said, we're looking for a freelancer. They like your they saw me. So I just got this freelance gig while I was working full time in Wheeling. So I would work Monday through Friday, morning show at noon. And then Saturdays and Sundays, most of the time I would be working morning and night on Saturday into Sunday evenings for 2 years. Whew. It's just hustle. And then when the position came open here at WTAE, it was like I didn't even have to audition because they could see me every weekend. It was like a natural audition. I still had to apply, but the chief, Mike, who's still here, kind of sent me a note, said, hey, we got an opening, you should apply. And I've been here since 2012.
Carlos, my pleasure. There's nothing like being on Dingo Talk. I've said that for years.
Thanks for checking out this episode of Dingo Talk. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. For more info and to contact the show, you can find us on Twitter @DingoTalk.